At the end of the last part, Ash and Akari were given the clearance to go to the Crimson Mirelands. So we find them now, heading to Anvin, the local craftsman, who has recently come up with some new types of Pokeballs. They speak with him and he hands the two a Pokeball each. Akari is handed a Heavy Ball, which is a short-range ball, best used for when sneaking up on a Pokemon and hitting from behind. Ash, on the other hand, is handed a Feather Ball, which is a long-range Pokeball that was designed to fly further distances upon being thrown. The two are quite impressed, though Akari takes issue with having to carry the weight of this ball while Ash seems much lighter. The reason for this, though, is that Anvin was told the two's skills and said that the choices given for testing these was specifically because of their own capabilities. Akari isn't sure about that completely, but she still politely thanks the craftsman for his work. It's then that they start heading towards the gates of Jubilife Village. Just before they leave, they're flagged down by Professor Laventon, who states how they cannot leave just yet. Confused, the trio go over to him and ask why this is the case. Much to their surprise, Laventon states how the Diamond Clan has offered to send one of the clan's wardens to lead them on their path. This was decided by Adamant himself, who also mentioned having Akari keep the Celestica flute on her. This confuses Akari, as so far there hasn't really been any use for it. Still, they have no other choice but to wait. Within the days before they can leave, Ash takes the time to try and teach Akari a thing or two about battling. The two spar with Duwat and Cyndaquil, while Volo watches from the sidelines. Akari and Cyndaquil aren't able to easily get the hang of battling, especially with Cyndaquil's timid nature making it more prone to running away rather than engaging Duwat head-on in battle. Akari also isn't too keen on commanding the Fire Mouse either, as she's still worried that she might get hurt instead of her opponent. Not to mention, anytime that Cyndaquil does get hurt, Akari just feels bad for the little one. Eventually, Akari decides to just give up. She even states how she's not gifted in battling like Ash is, as she walks away. Eventually, Ash joins her, finding her at a nearby bridge over a small stream. She watches as the water flows, while holding Cyndaquil in her arms. Ash asks if he can sit beside her, and when she allows it, the 10-year-old admits how he wasn't always the great battler that she sees him as now. To get where he is now, it took a lot of hard work. In fact, he didn't truly win a battle for quite some time. Akari doesn't believe him, but Ash assures her that it was the truth. When battling his friend Brock, he lost the first time, and the second time he forfeited because he didn't want to upset Brock's siblings by hurting his beloved partner. His friend Misty and him never really got to finish their battle, though her sisters thought he was going to win. It wasn't until he faced a man by the name of Lieutenant Surge that he was able to get a win, and even then, he lost their first match. Even after that, he lost multiple battles, even when it was important that he win in the end. Losing wasn't a bad thing. If anything, he probably learned more from losing than he did winning. What was important was that he didn't give up until the very end. That's how he became stronger. These words leave Akari at a loss for words. She even giggles at one point, baffled by the fact someone so much younger than her was more experienced than her at the same time. Ash's words seem to have fully reached her, as she decides to give the training another shot. Meanwhile, as Ash and Akari are speaking to each other, Volo watches from afar. He contemplates the current situation. Ash had proven himself to be strong, even with the Pokemon under his command lacking in numbers. Situations like the Nobles of Cleaver's Frenzy were meant to slow things down, maybe even put an end to Ash. However, if Ash was not only able to calm these Pokemon and best them in combat, but also trained another to be just as strong, then he might be able to foil his plans once and for all. No, he was just overthinking it. the chance of Ash being able to find his partner would be very low. Sure, that strange device of Ash's told him to seek out the Renegade, but how was he supposed to do that if he couldn't cross dimensions? All he had to do was hold out until his partner reached the two who would have the power he needs. Then he could meet the one he seeks. That's when his plan could truly unfold. From behind, Volo hears the whisper that someone can sense darkness in him. A chill climbs up his spine as he whips around to find a small child staring blankly at him. Volo chuckles nervously before telling the kid that they shouldn't say things like that to strangers. Upon those words leaving Volo's mouth, however, the child is possessed by a devilish grin, as the child says Volo is no stranger. Not to them. Volo asks who them are. The kid then tilts their head, asking Volo if he really can't feel them. All 216 of them. While still unnerved, Volo was starting to find this less believable. So he asks where exactly those 216 are. The child's eyes then widen, before pointing off in the direction of the exit gate to Jubilife Village, the one taken in order to get to places like the Obsidian Fieldlands. As Volo turns to look, the child tells him that they are waiting for him. When Volo turns back, nobody is there anymore. After more training between Ash and Akari, someone finally arrives with the exclamation that she'll be taking them to the Crimson Mirelands. Before she even attempts to introduce herself, she immediately runs over to the nearby hair salon and begins gushing over how great it is, daring to call many aspects cutting edge. When she finally gets back to the original train of thought, she introduces herself as Arezu, warden in the Crimson Mirelands, hence while she'll be guarding them. Volo notes that it's quite a far walk to the Crimson Mirelands, so Akari asks how long Arezu expects the trip to take. This makes Arezu smile, as she states how they won't be traveling by simply walking themselves. She was specifically chosen because she has something to teach Akari. With that, she pulls out a flute, telling Akari to bring out the Celestica flute as well. Akari does so, and slowly, she's taught a short song. When Akari manages to play it properly, nothing really happens. Akari asks what that was supposed to do, only for Arezu to tell her that they just have to wait a moment. Suddenly, barreling past the gate guards, the Great Weirdeer, whom they had helped a couple weeks ago, appears. The main trio is amazed, with Arezu stating that this song, played on the Celestica flute, is special to the Pokemon who were friends to the ancient Hisui hero. Whenever this song plays from the Celestica flute, it's said that 5 of the Pokemon will answer the call. It doesn't even matter how far a distance. As far as the legends have stated, that is. Akari asks why Weirdeer was really going to be carrying them all the way to the Crimson Mirelands, which Weirdeer nods to, before brushing up against Akari in a way that Ash states is a show of its affection to her. So with Weirdeer now willing to take them to the Mirelands, the group sets off. Arezu and Akari ride on the back of Weirdeer, while Volo and Ash follow behind on Volo's Togekiss. They occasionally stop to rest, and Ash and Akari do get in some training along the way, before they eventually reach the Crimson Mirelands. Arezu explains to each of them that the Crimson Mirelands is known for the many bogs, which Pokemon like Hippowdon live within. She states how there will be plenty to research within the area, but also tells them that when they have the chance, they should also visit Warden Caliba. When asked why, Arezu says that it has to do with Ursaluna, the Pokemon Caliba is warden of. She states that she can't give too many details, but they'll be able to hear from Caliba herself if they visit Salacian Ruins. Before anything else is said, Arezu leaves with the mention of how she has some other business to attend to. The mention of Salacian Ruins is something which confuses Ash, as he remembers visiting it in Sinnoh alongside his friends. He mentions it to Akari and Volo, which surprises the two, as neither have ever heard of another Salacian Ruins before. After Akari says goodbye to Weirdeer, they begin their excursion. However, Ash is already thinking about all the strange similarities between Sinnoh and Hisui. Was there a connection he didn't know of? The group explores the Mirelands, seeing all sorts of Pokemon. Carnivine, Krogunk, and Hippopotas are only a few of the ones they have been able to see. A Pokemon which Ash is surprised to see is Petalil. He mentions how it may be the perfect Pokemon for Akari to capture. Akari is uncertain of herself, but gives it a try. Taking out the Heavy Ball, she throws it with all her might, only for it to fall down into a small puddle in front of her, frightening Petalil away. Volo supposes that the Heavy Ball is much shorter range than they expected it to be. Ash assures Akari that it'll be okay. They can find her another Pokemon to test the Heavy Ball on. So, the trio begins searching for other options. Most, unfortunately, don't make things easy for them. Pokemon like Roselia and Ralts run away from them. Ash considers having Akari try to catch Pachirisu, but Akari isn't too keen on electric types still, other than Ash's Pikachu. Eventually, Volo states that perhaps Akari isn't ready to try catching other Pokemon. After all, she's still getting used to Cyndaquil. Ash disagrees, however, stating how the best way for Akari to learn and improve is by doing this. Besides, Akari only needs to catch it for the sake of testing the Heavy Ball. She doesn't have to try and catch a Pokemon she feels unready to raise. Ash and Volo start debating between themselves, leaving Akari to search on her own. As she looks around, she does mutter to herself that she would like to be able to catch other Pokemon, like Ash. That way she could better help Professor Laventon. It's then that Akari notices a small gray Pokemon in the distance. It has a few green spots, which does make her wonder whether it might be poisonous. However, it doesn't seem to be too harmful on first appearance. While Ash and Volo continue to debate, Akari slowly heads in the direction of the small Pokemon. The Pokemon seems to be sleeping at the time, so it doesn't realize that she's sneaking up behind. Then, taking out the Heavy Ball, she tosses it at the Pokemon's back. Thud! The Heavy Ball sinks into the Pokemon in such a way that it sounds like it touched the ground below. However, while Akari worries that she did it wrong, suddenly the ball opens, pulling the small Pokemon inside. Once it's gone, the ball rocks back and forth, until sparks fly from the ball, in signification that she had successfully captured the Pokemon. Akari's eyes light up as she lifts up the ball. She'd done it, all by herself. Even after failing, she was able to catch a Pokemon. When Akari returns to the two, Volo finally concedes to Ash, saying that he shouldn't come crying to him if something happens to Akari while trying these things. However, then Akari baffles the two by stating how she already caught something. Excited, Ash asks her to show them. With a pop of the ball, Akari brings out a Pokemon that Ash happens to know well, and because of that, he knows the Pokemon isn't sleeping. Quickly, he rushes the Pokemon he calls Goomy to a nearby river, where he proceeds to submerge the Pokemon. Akari gasps, thinking Ash may have lost it and tried to drown her Pokemon. But then the Goomy slithers out of the water, not only awake, but looking much more refreshed. Only then does Akari learn that Gumi need to be kept moist, due to their slimy bodies. Akari now feels bad for not being able to notice Gumi needed help, but Volo reminds her that she's never seen this Pokemon before, so how could she expect to know what it needs? Ash agrees with this, stating how he didn't know that when he first met a Gumi. Akari asks if Ash has a Gumi of his own, to which Ash mentions that he did. It was a very reliable Pokemon, and under his care it grew quickly into a Goodra, though eventually the two parted ways. While both wanted to be stronger, Goodra wanted it in order to protect others. By the time Goodra was strong enough for that, Ash had to say goodbye and let Goodra protect his homeland. The story of Goodra actually makes Akari a bit saddened by the fact Ash had to leave a friend, but Ash says that it was alright. Even though the two are separated, they're both still friends. He might even go visit Goodra sometime, once he's done here in Hisui. Volo does mention that it's a shame such a strong Pokemon couldn't stay by Ash's side. If both were on the same path, Ash probably could have become a Pokemon master and achieved his dreams. The smile on Ash's face fades slightly. He then mentions how he's not sure about that, as for all he knows, Goodra has done more than enough to help him. The moment becomes slightly tense, as Volo has seemingly upset Ash with the mention of his dream. However, it's then that Ash changes his mood back to normal, and they begin their excursion once again. As they walk to higher elevations, suddenly Volo gets a weird feeling. A feeling as if someone was calling out to him. He splits from the group and heads to even higher grounds. There, he finds a group of ruins surrounding two strange stones. Volo looks at them in confusion, only for the two stones to begin glowing purple. Ash and Akari end up finding a weird colored Rhyhorn. Ash is about to throw a ball at it, when suddenly the ground begins to rumble. The Rhyhorn runs away, but now Ash and Akari are focused more on what's going on, as well as where Volo went. From higher up, Ash sees a large purple cloud form. Green dots form within it, before an evil smile appears. Knowing they need to do something, the two run in the direction of it. When they arrive, they find Volo fallen over on the ground, scared of the powerful Pokemon. Ash identifies it as a Spiritomb, just as it begins to charge up a Hyper Beam. Being too far away to be able to strike a powerful hit in time to stop the beam, Ash instead tries to throw the Feather Ball, figuring it'll hit Spiritomb and capture it. Unfortunately, the Feather Ball's range results in it flying over Spiritomb, instead striking the back of a large pink mass, which is sucked inside instead. Ash and Akari's jaws drop, and become too distracted to notice Spiritomb begin hopping in the direction of a nearby Diamond Clan settlement. Immediately, Ash and Akari go to check on Volo, finding him holding a Pokeball. The two ask if he's alright, to which Volo nods. He states how he intended to battle the Spiritomb, but it knocked him down before he can even throw a ball. He's alright though, not too badly hurt or anything. With Volo back on his feet, Ash then goes over to the Feather Ball. What exactly had he captured? He wasn't entirely sure, but he needed to move quickly to stop Spiritomb from attacking the Diamond Settlement. He grabs the ball, and the trio heads out. As soon as they arrive, they find Spiritomb causing chaos. It blasts Hyper Beam, Shadow Ball, and whips up ominous winds, destroying property and harming many of the innocent clan members. Knowing they'll need to take care of it quickly, Ash and Akari bring out Pikachu, Cyndaquil, Dewott, and Gumi to bombard Spiritomb with multiple attacks. Spiritomb is more than capable of handling the 4 Pokemon, but at least the fighting keeps it from hurting any of the people. Within the fight, Ash notices that on occasion, Spiritomb changes how it battles. Some attacks have it moving much faster than usual, while other times it launches a supercharged attack, which is far more damage than normal. It becomes a major problem, and the 4 Pokemon aren't able to do enough on their own. So Ash pulls out the Feather Ball. Before throwing it, he states that he hopes his new member is strong enough to face his opponent. Then, he throws the ball. It flies far until it strikes the ghastly face of Spiritomb. Bouncing off the ghost, the Feather Ball eventually opens. From inside the ball, a hulking pink mass appears. It slams down on the ground before letting out a cry of "Licky!" Then, it gets to work. It strikes with multiple fast-striking rollout attacks, before slamming Spiritomb with an Ice Punch. Spiritomb attempts to use Hyper Beam, but Licky counters with a Hyper Beam of its own. Spiritomb goes for Giga Impact, but the massive Licky sticks out its tongue, wrapping it around the keystone, making Spiritomb unable to strike with the full force move. It then spins before flinging Spiritomb away, allowing for Ash to quickly have Pikachu and Dewott strike with an Iron Tail and X-Scissor combo. Ash is astounded by the power of his 3 Pokemon, and so calls for Licky to attack once again. Unfortunately for Ash, while Licky is just about to attack, suddenly its stomach growls. Finding itself to be quite famished, Licky instead walks away to a berry tree, leaving it up to the other 4 Pokemon once again. As the battle rages on, eventually Akari asks Volo why he's not assisting. Volo retorts that even if they manage to knock out Spiritomb, that won't necessarily stop it on its own. They needed to seal it instead. Ash looks up and notices dark clouds beginning to form. Strangely, he hatches an idea, recalling something from his past. He tells Akari and Volo to go with Dewott and collect several stones. He and Pikachu will handle Spiritomb. When Spiritomb is handled, they'll set all the stones around it. While the 2 Hisui locals are unsure of this idea, they still decide to give it a try, and so head off to collect as many large stones as they can alongside Dewott. Ash and Pikachu stare down Spiritomb, who lets out a spiritual cry before firing off another Shadow Ball. Quickly, Pikachu dashes in with Quick Attack before slicing the Shadow Ball in half. Ash then has Pikachu ensnare Spiritomb with Electro Web, keeping it from attacking for the moment. When the web covers Spiritomb completely, Ash rushes over to it. Before going with his plan, he puts a hand on Spiritomb and forces his will into it. He tries to convince Spiritomb to stop peacefully and give up on hurting the people of the village. However, Spiritomb won't listen, regardless of Ash's determination and will. So, Ash commands Pikachu to launch Thunderbolt into the sky. Sparks fly as Pikachu launches his signature attack into the air. It doesn't hit anything, but rather attracts a bolt of lightning that supercharges the electric type. Pikachu fires off a powerful attack, which manages to get the better of Spiritomb once and for all. The spirits return to the keystone, allowing Ash to pick it up. He apologizes to it, but hopefully Spiritomb will be able to rest peacefully. He then dashes off to reunite with Akari and Volo. When the group meets back up, Ash sets down the odd keystone. As quickly as they can, the group begins putting together a tower, sealing the Spiritomb within. Ash sighs with relief, stating how that should hold Spiritomb for a while. Hopefully the people won't have to worry about Spiritomb attacking near their village again. Just then, Cheers can be heard from behind. Ash turns to find the people of the Diamond Clan in an uproar of positivity due to his actions. Each one then comes over and thanks the trio personally. Akari even mentions how Ash's thinking was very clever, and asks how he came up with it. Ash shrugs, saying that he was able to handle Spiritomb in the way he'd done in the past. As for sealing Spiritomb in a tower, he remembered it from the first Spiritomb he'd battled. It was sealed inside a tower as well, so he thought that maybe it would work here too. He had considered catching Spiritomb, but he was certain that Licky Licky was already going to be a handful for the time being. Speaking of Licky Licky, due to Ash's actions, the members of the Diamond Clan offered to supply him with enough food to get Licky Licky under control. That way, should he need to use the alpha Pokemon anytime soon, then it would be ready for the time being. Ash thanks them, though he asks how they knew it was an alpha. That's when Ash is told that there was only ever one Licky Licky the size of Ash's in the area. That one was an alpha Pokemon, which also meant it likely would need a lot of food. Ash chuckles, noticing how a normal type with a strong appetite was something he'd dealt with in the past. Though the Pokemon he was thinking of would only fight when hungry, while Licky Licky might only fight on a full stomach. Still, Ash agrees to the food from the clan, and heads back with them to their settlement. As the group walks, Akari mentions how things could have been bad if they had to deal with more than one Spiritomb. Volo laughs at the idea, while holding a Pokeball behind his back so none notice it. A spectral energy surrounds the ball briefly. The word of Ash's work is brought back to Jubilife Village, and the ears of Commander Komodo. Rather than being impressed, he's outraged by the idea that this outsider was the one to do such a noble deed. Though, when he hears that Ash tried to something very similar to how he calmed the Rapidash, Komodo hatches an idea. Perhaps the story of these events didn't need to mention an outsider specifically. And that's where we'll be leaving things for right now. So what do you guys think? What events will occur with Ash and the gang now in the Crimson Mirelands? Do you like the Pokemon Ash and Akari caught, or were you surprised by them? And what do you think is in that Pokeball of Volo's? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!